So tonight we are talking top 5 dead actors. Motty, Jay, do you want to go first?
Yeah, like you said, you know, it's so broad when you say actors, and we mean actors and actresses, by the way. I know some people don't like using the word actress, but in case anyone's wondering, it's actor or actress. But I'll go first. I'll pick the first one who's on the list. Do you know what? I'm going to start with my fave because I just can't help myself, man. For me, the greatest television actor of all time in the greatest television show of all time, and that is James Gandolfini in The Sopranos. Now, the thing with The Sopranos is, you know, it's easy to almost dismiss Gandolfini a little bit and go, "Oh, he's playing a gangster, and you know, it's not that difficult." And that. But for starters, he didn't just play a gangster; he played a gangster who was a family man, and you got to know his family, the family side of him. He had a soft side. He was charismatic, but he could be angry. He could be quite brutal. It could be funny. And Gandolfini captured all this, and he made you root for him. You were completely rooting for Tony Soprano all the way. And this was a guy who committed crimes. There's a scene with Edie Falco, who plays his wife, where she goes to a psychiatrist and she's trying to explain how she loves him, but he's got his faults. And she says what he does, and she says, "But he's a good man." And the psychiatrist says, "You just told me he's a depressed criminal who kills people." And it's like, that is what he was. But you loved him, and you rooted for Tony Soprano because of Gandolfini. And I think what I loved about it is, you know, the scenes with his boys and the sort of action scenes and stuff like that, or where he was getting angry and fighting or whatever, were great. But the scenes where he was being a father, where he was arguing with his wife, to capture that and sort of the different layers and the different sides to this family man who also ran a mafia family, which is a sort of the crux of it, and was going through these issues, these having to see a psychiatrist, having to deal with his home life, which was chaotic. Yes, he was deeply flawed, but he was ultimately, you know, charismatic and likable because of Gandolfini. Gandolfini just captured all that, and he did it superbly. And it's just, you know, it still saddens me now that James Gandolfini, passed away when he did. I think he was 51 when he passed away. I know The Sopranos had ended, but that doesn't mean anything, because if you look at Gandolfini's film career, it was just really getting interesting just before he passed away. I mean, he was in a film called The Drop, which he's fantastic in that, with Tom Hardy. I think that was released after he died.
Yeah, it was the last film, was it?
Yeah, he plays like a sort of a bar owner who's got all these problems and he's in debts and stuff. It's a great film, and he's great in it. It's a bit of an underrated film. One of my favorite films of his, though, is Enough Said with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and it's about like two middle-aged people that end up getting together, and with sort of twists in it, and the sort of, it's like a comedy. It's more of a drama than a comedy, but as you'd expect with Julia Louis-Dreyfus especially, there's quite some funny moments in it, and he's just amazing. And you look at that compared to Tony Soprano, you couldn't get two more different roles. And it's fascinating as well, because I saw Michael Imperioli and Robert Shapiro were on Joe Rogan not long ago, and they were talking about Gandolfini and how a lot of people forget he's not, like, a lot of the people in The Sopranos came from that lifestyle, that they came from like Brooklyn or New Jersey, or they're rough places, and they were, you know, some of them were actually on the fringes of being a gangster themselves, or at least around gangsters. And he wasn't. He came from a theatre background. If you ever see him in an interview, he's nothing like Tony Soprano. This is like an almost classically trained guy who's quite. Everyone says he's just got a massive heart and really soft. And the cast and the crew, you ever see them being interviewed and speak about him, they just well up. They get so emotional because he was such a lovely guy. But in terms of an actor, there's just never been. I don't think there's ever been anyone like him on television. He just did a superb job of making that show work. It doesn't work with anyone else playing Tony Soprano. It just doesn't. You can't imagine anyone in that role, and no one can capture the sort of different sides to Tony that he does, and he does it so well. And you add in his film career as well, which was obviously just getting going, really. You know, he died when he was 51, and he was beginning to make more films because he wasn't doing Sopranos anymore, and they were good films. You know, Killing Him Softly is another one he's in, where he's fantastic in that. He's only got like 2 or 3 scenes, but he just basically delivers 2 monologues, and he's fantastic the way he does it.
Yeah.
It's mad because it's great that we had him and he had such a great body of work, but it just saddens me a little bit that we didn't get to see him as an older actor, because I'm sure he would have had a lot more to give.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. We both had to share our love of the Sopranos, and that was it for me. That series, the mafia stuff, just for me as a viewer, as great as it was on the eye, that was sort of secondary. You know, the tale for me was this bloke sort of. It was like a midlife crisis in many ways, wasn't it? And it was how you can take that as a metaphor for all of us have got. Obviously we don't go around killing people and stuff like that, but you know we've all got our day job and trying to.
You are from Longsight and Levenshulme, so I don't know you.
But you know what I mean. I like how he does that. For me, the scenes with him and Dr. Melfi are just absolutely fantastic, and it is that range that it shows. And what I always doesn't really get talked about a lot with the Sopranos, and particularly Tony Soprano's character, is that he's coming off the back of probably the greatest era for gangster films. So it was dead easy for him to sort of fall into the same old tropes that had been seen in the likes of Goodfellas, Casino, everything that went through the 90s, because this is coming at the back end, isn't it? Is it early 2000, I think?
I think you're right, the Sopranos, yeah.
So he could have easily turned, you know, he could have took that character and just easily gone a similar way with him. And I don't know if anybody else was auditioned for the role of Tony Soprano, but it is so difficult.
Funnily enough, sorry to insult you, Steve Van Zandt, who plays Silvio, auditioned for it. And obviously get it rightly so. I like Steve Van Zandt and I like the character Silvio, and he does a very good job. It's Silvio, and it's Consigliere. But yeah, I mean, can anyone do that? Could anyone have seriously had that role? Can you imagine anyone in that role doing it the way that the Gandolfini did? I can't, and I think it helps him as well that he wasn't a superstar when he took it.
Yeah,
he'd done films, but you know, he was in True Romance and a few others. But he wasn't a star, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like a De Niro or someone taking that role, Pacino, or you know. So you've got that element of just buying into it completely from the start.
Yeah, I mean, the scenes in The Sopranos where he's trying to deal with AJ's defiance, and we're both parents of kids, you know what I mean? And he just epitomizes that, like when you're trying to get your kids to listen to you, and he's trying everything and he's racking his fucking brain, but this kid just isn't listening. And like the father and son stuff, husband and wife, and it's just to be able to have that range and then keep it consistent across everything was just incredible. And like I said, any sound clips or interviews that you see of any former cast members of The Sopranos always speak so highly. He very much was like a family member to him, and I know a lot of them looked up to him. But yeah, man, absolute shame at the age of 51, God knows, because like I said, he showcased how much he could do in different sort of scenes and styles over a long time in a series. You just wonder what he would have been able to do with like a massive script or something like that, bigger roles on like across 90 minutes. I loved him in is it The Mexican with Julia Roberts and Brad Pitt, where he plays a gay assassin. Now that was completely against what you wouldn't expect that, but he's so tender in it as well. There's a scene with him and Julia Roberts where I think he comes out, doesn't there, and because he's keeping the hard face up in front of Brad Pitt, and then he lets on that he's gay to Julia Roberts. And it's such a tender moment on screen, and again, that just sort of shows the diversity of his talent. So yeah, completely and utterly sorely missed on our screens. I did put James Gandolfini first, but I did I let Jay off.
You let me have that one. I appreciate it, because, like you say, we're both, there's no top trumps here. You love The Sopranos and Gandolfini as much as I do, and I always find it. I always remember me and you sort of when we met each other, we were big Sopranos fans, and we used to go back and forth about it. And it's mad because I remember asking you about one of the series, and the main thing you were telling me about it was, I can't believe, like, I think it was season 3 or whatever. They split up at the end, because that was it. The main storyline for you was Tony and Carmela.
Yeah.
Splitting up, whereas a lot of other people would be like, oh, Johnny Sack's taking over New York, or, he's killed, his mouth's gone, or whatever. But for you, it was like that, how you saw it. Yeah, you asked someone else, even myself, they'd see it differently, because there's all these sides to that character, and he got it. He just nailed it, man. He did, and it's like you said, you spot on. Could have been easy to do it as one note, or just a tough guy who, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who has that one side to him, but it will never work because this is someone who, like you say, goes through the emotions of being a parent, trying to be a good dad, trying to be falling short, but trying to be a good husband, going through his kids, because the kids grow up, don't they? Go from especially AJ, he's an innocent sort of adolescent to
he grew up on The Sopranos, didn't he?
Yeah.
As a person.
So he just absolutely gets it spot on, and there's so many great scenes in that. I don't know where to start, but I love the thing with James Gandolfini as well. He could go from like the light to the dark so quickly, when he could snap, or he could go the other way where he could be. My favorite scene is where he goes round with his sisters for dinner, and he just starts winding her up because he's bored about a son she's not seen, and he's a bit annoyed with her because she's coping really well. And he just starts winding her up, and then she jumps up to attacks him with a fork. And I always cry laughing when I watch it because he jumps up and puts a chair between her, and then gets behind Bobby like he's running away from his sister. His boyfriend.
And this is a man that goes out killing people and he's scared of it. But it's like, but again, I mean, we've all got siblings, and we know that the writing can be as good as it can be, but if you haven't got an actor that can portray that emotion, you know what I mean, who can pick the chair up, and it's the facial expressions that he does as well. You know when he's being sort of cheeky and has that wry smile, or there's a scene where he's where I think it's one of the first scenes where he falls into the when he falls into the fucking pool and stuff like that, and he's got all the days look when I love the dreams as well in Sopranos. I really enjoyed them when he's walking and stuff. I thought they were fantastic. I mean, we could have an whole episode on the Sopranos, but yeah, definitely James Gandolfini.
That will be a top 5 for me and you one day, very soon, probably top 5 Sopranos scenes or episodes, because we could do. We could do that all day long, mate. Not an issue. But yeah, Gandolfini, gone but not forgotten, obviously.
Next up, I'm going to go for who I would say is probably the greatest supporting actor of all time, and he only starred in 5 films over 6 years, and every single film. Was it all 5 were nominated for Best Academy Awards, and 3 won Best Oscar. John Cazale, and everybody will know him as Fredo in The Godfather, and I think that role of the cast is so strong in The Godfather that it's hard to sort of outshine the likes of Pacino and Brando. I think he outdoes James Caan's son though in his acting skills. So I think James Caan, when you revisit The Godfather, is fucking really hammy. I think so the scene where he's beating up his sister's husband. But just a lot of people in The Godfather look at the Pacino moment where he's about to do the shooting in the restaurant and the change in face and character. But if you look at Fredo's narrative as well, where he goes to this sort of meek and humble, overly emotional, and then he goes to he turncoats because he's just because he wants the power because he's the older brother, and that's great. And there's so many great lines in it, like, it ain't the way I wanted, I've got street smarts, and it's just like this weaker older brother, and he isn't anyone's favorite. Nobody likes Fredo as a character, but that's fantastic acting to be able to do that. You want that, and then you've got the scene just before he gets killed in The Godfather 2, where he's being the doting uncle, and again he's trying to repent for his sins and stuff like that. I thought that was fantastic. But the films he's been in as well, the Deer Hunter is amazing in that. And do you know the story behind the Deer Hunter? It was actually diagnosed. So John Cazale died at the age of 42 of lung cancer. Now, before they started shooting the Deer Hunter, they knew he didn't have long left and he was going to die. But Robert De Niro and the director Michael Cimino got together and said, right, well, we're not going to let the studios know that he's ill, and we're going to start shooting him. We'll shoot his scenes first. Anyway, they got wind of it. And then Mel Streep threatened. Mel Streep, who was his girlfriend during the time, said that she's gonna walk off set. I'm not gonna carry on filming. And they weren't asked. They weren't gonna do it. They were gonna pull the film. And then Michael Cimino said that he's gonna sack. And then De Niro, as it was his good friend, he stepped forward and said, right, well, I'll pay all the insurance money. And can you imagine how much insurance money you're gonna have to get on a Hollywood blockbuster film? to cover, because if he dies halfway through the film and they've already shot all that in the can, then you're gonna have to pull it out. So De Niro stepped forward, and what's really tragic, because he's really good in that film. And again, he only did 5 films, but the surrounding actors in it, you got like Christopher Walken in that, De Niro, Mel Streep's in it. It's fantastic. But I can't watch that film back again after I found out that he was ill. You're always looking at him in the film and just seeing, I wonder how far along, not in a morbid way, but just because the greater content, it does sort of ruin it. But as an actor, I think Al Pacino said that he actually taught him how to act. Now, Al Pacino was revered as one of the greatest actors of all time. So if you're looking at John Cazale, what could he have gone on for? Do you know what I mean? And to die at the age of 42. He was also in a great film called, have you seen The Conversation?
With Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman. That's another brilliant film. Another Francis Ford Coppola film that very rarely gets mentioned. And that's a fantastic film. Especially, I'm really into that. That's outside of crime, outside of the mafia world. That's sort of my favorite sort of genre of film as well. But that's another film. But Hollywood with tragic endings, and you just talked about Gandolfini there. I mean, he had 10 years on John Cazale, and you got to wonder what he could go on. He could have possibly gone on, because every single film, and I can't talk about his catalogue without talking about Dog Day Afternoon as well, when he's playing along.
Yeah. I love that film. I love him in that.
Yeah. Oh, the last scene, he plays Sal alongside Al Pacino, where they do this. It's a true story, isn't it? This failed bank robbery during the times of the Attica riots, wasn't it, in America? And there's a scene at the end on the airport tarmac, and he's absolutely fantastic. He's just a phenomenal actor. I mean, we're massive sports fans, and we when you look at goal scoring ratios, every single film, he had such a short career, and he just knocked out of the park every single time. So it's a huge shame that we never really got to see what he would be like to actually have a lead role in something. Do you know what I mean? I know he had some Broadway shows and stuff, but to actually see him, it was very much unfulfilled potential. But for this limited time with here, he was in The Godfather 1, Godfather 2, Dog Day Afternoon, The Conversation, and The Deer Hunter. I mean, how many actors that have had a 50-year career have any of them films in? Do you know what I mean? To have all them condensed into 6 years. He's just phenomenal. Absolute tragic miss, but he's a fantastic actor.
No, you've nailed it, mate. He's one of a kind, and the way he's revered by other actors. And you look, everyone. His most famous role, obviously, is Fredo in The Godfather, and he's fantastic in that. And was a sort of deeply flawed character even in that world. And he plays him so well. But do you know what? I love Dog Day Afternoon, and what I love about him in that is he captures, because there's quite a lot of humor in that. It's like almost like a dark comedy at times, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he epitomizes a lot of that, and obviously just some of the way he delivers some of the lines. Like, we'll get off plane and we'll go abroad, and where should we go? Wyoming, things like that. And he's like the way he does it, because he's quite sinister, because he talks like, if you want to kill them all, I'll do it. And it's like, this is a scary guy, and you think he's not all there, and he's capable of hurting these people, but it's funny, and it's how he does that. He keeps it sort of just on the right side. Sorry, go on, mate.
Yeah. So you're right. He sort of balances that dark humor and sinister, and it's on a knife edge, isn't it? Really, it can go any way. And Dog Day Afternoon, if you were to watch that for the first 15-20 minutes, you would think it's very much like a Gene Wilder or Richard Pryor sort of film. Do you know what I mean? It could have easily fallen into farce. Even on the premise alone of what there's, because Al Pacino's trying to get a sex change for his partner. Do you know what I mean? You can see the premise. It could have easily fell into the comedy genre. But again, like the acting performance, Chino's great in it, but I think Cazale definitely said he's the greater actor in that.
No, he is. You know what? And Pacino probably admit that. And imagine being in these films with these actors, right? You're sharing scenes almost constantly with Pacino, with De Niro, with Hackman, with Khan. I mean, these are scene chewers, stealers. These are like, you might want to do the odd film with them, but not your entire fucking career.
Yeah.
This is like, who's going to notice me when I'm up against these? How do I do it? How do I hold my own? And he more than holds his own. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's arguably the most watchable thing in some of these films in terms of acting, because he he just plays it just right. You spoke about how sometimes you felt James Caan was hammering over the top. You're never going to get that with Cazale. He's absolutely just superb in everything he does, and the way he reacts to other actors as well. And it is sad, but I just think, you've got to be so grateful that we had an actor like that in those films, making those classic films better. It's like, you talk about football. People always argue, oh, well, Scholes only ever won so many league titles because he was in a team with Ronaldo and Beckham and Giggs. Then you argue, but would those teams have won those trophies if he wasn't in them? No. And it's like that with Cazale. Would would all those films have been nominated for Best Picture? Would they have been as revered and loved and respected without him? No, they wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? Francis Ford Coppola, Sidney Lumet, Michael Cimino, they don't just throw a fucking stone out the window and cast them in a main part of the film. They picked the best they could get, and he was the best. And, like you say, his body of work may not be that big, but there's no one who's got as impressive canon of films. It's just amazing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you should. You might have seen it, but there's an interview where Pacino talks about him, and Pacino racked into work, and I think it is on Dog Day Afternoon, and Cazale was just like turning up a notch, and it made Pacino go like that. He made me have to be a better actor because he was always on his A game. And there's that so many actors that you just mentioned there that always say every time he went into work, he was always hitting it, as he was always hitting a high bar. And actors, as their art form, have to bounce off each other and rise to the level. So I like to look at Cazale and Pacino, just to use another sports analogy, very much like Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Jordan isn't as successful if Scottie Pippen isn't picking up all them rebounds. That's the way I always see them.
No, you're right, mate. And you mentioned there about Meryl Streep. Imagine that being in The Deer Hunter, playing the love interest of Christopher Walken and Robert De Niro, while his real boyfriend is in the film dying of cancer.
Yeah,
and she's amazing in that film as well. And to have gone through everything she was going through, and they're all going through it because they're all they all loved him. To put the performances in, Michael Cimino in many ways flattered to deceive a little bit with that film because it was just an epic film and he never quite lived up to it after that. But that film and the performances are all amazing. And again, he does it again, doesn't he? He's just like you say, you can't help but watch him. And I think that's always the case with him. And you're in a film with Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro, and people are still drawn to you, and people are still like, that's the performance, and that's just fucking unreal, that man. It really is. It's just, he's one of a kind, isn't he? He really is.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. Your shout?
My shout. The next one is an older gentleman and someone who definitely didn't, sort of pass away before his time. In fact, considering the lifestyle that he led, he actually did well to reach 72. It's Richard Harris. Now, the reason I just fucking love Richard Harris, right? And I'll tell you why. The reason I love Richard Harris is he had a career. His career was pretty amazing. And then when he got to towards the end of his career, it just seemed to take off again. It just sort of went to a new level. And it was just, you could argue that the last sort of 10 years of his life, of his career, were probably his best, which is pretty amazing because he had, like I say, Richard Harris sort of came up through in the 60s, made his name in this sporting life where he plays a sort of rugby player. He loved rugby himself, Richard Harris. So he's a sort of a big, imposing Irish guy who, heavy, hard drinker and sort of carried that sort of persona at a time when that was a sort of, the alpha male was big in the sort of 60s. Most, actors like, Oliver Reed, Albert Finney types who were like rough and ready. And he was like that. And he has this career and, it's sort of going along. You've got films like This Sporting Life and Cromwell, he's great in that as well. And then as you'd expect it to be sort of winding down as he gets into his 60s, it just takes off again. And the sort of the film that epitomizes how that does, I'll get on some others in a minute, is Unforgiven. He's in Unforgiven, which is one of my favorite films ever. Yeah. You talk about John Cazale holding his own against the likes of De Niro, Pacino, and Jimmy Caan and whoever. Richard Harris is in this film. You've got Gene Hackman, you've got Morgan Freeman, and you've got Clint Eastwood. Now, for me, Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman have never been better than they are in this film. Gene Hackman, I think, won an Academy Award for his portrayal of Little Bill. Clint Eastwood was nominated for an Oscar. He didn't win the acting he won. He won for directing, but he's just never been better in any film. And I rate Clint Eastwood as an actor as well. Morgan Freeman, he's at the top of his game. He's probably had one or two performances that have stood out more than this, but he's superb in this. But Richard Harris just almost steals the film. And it's mad because in this film, he is older. He's no longer that strong, butch guy that you've seen in the 60s and 70s. He's an older gunslinger who's still, a character and an evil man or whatever, but he's physically weaker. And, in one scene, he gets beat up by Gene Hackman. And Richard Harris in this film, you see him going through all these sorts of things of like, he's quite sinister and it's quite evil, and he's like a gun for hire who's come to this town to commit murder or whatever, gets sort of found out, embarrassed a little bit, and he goes through all that, Richard Harris, and he's just acing it. He really is. It's just a superb performance, and it's a bit of an ensemble piece in the way that all those four actors are all in it almost the same as each other, and he has like a big chunk in the middle where for about an hour he's in it. And he's amazing in it. Him and Saul Rubinek and Gene Hackman have a few scenes together, and they're great. And that sort of kick-started the second stage of his career, if you will, because then a few years later he was in Gladiator, a famous film, sword and sandal, reinvented the sword and sandal epic. Now, with this film, Richard Harris is almost like a glorified cameo in a way. He's only in four or five scenes at the beginning, but he's the catalyst that starts the story, really. It's his death that kicks off Russell Crowe's character Maximus going against the Emperor and all this shit. And Richard Harris, like I say, he's only in a couple of scenes. He has a couple of scenes with Russell Crowe and with Joaquin Phoenix. But there's one scene, especially with Joaquin Phoenix, where he's sort of admitting he was a bad dad, and he's sad the fact that he wasn't a better father, and he's going through all these things of like he's trying to pass the empire to a republic, and he's trying to, confront his son and admit to his son that he's, deal with the fact that his son's upset and he hasn't been a great dad. And he nails all this, Richard Harris. And, Gladiator, as you're talking about the making of films earlier, the making of Gladiator is one of the most chaotic film sets ever. I think it's a 2.5 hour film. They started filming with 40 pages worth of scripts. So you think a page is like a minute. So they had 40 minutes worth of scripts when they started filming. They were rewriting and writing pages every day. Russell Crowe and Ridley Scott, the director, had a big fucking fallout and were barely speaking and were like almost physically fighting with each other. In the end, they sort of fixed it, and the mates now. They've worked together since. Oliver Reed dies halfway through shooting.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So there's something you got to deal with. One of your main actors just drops down dead in a bar in Malta, levered, as usual. God rest him. So it's all this going on, and yet from it all, you get one of the best films of like the noughties. And the catalyst for it all is Richard Harris, and someone who, in a lesser actor, it wouldn't have worked because it wouldn't have been like, you couldn't have bought the idea that all this happens and that he commands the respect of all these soldiers, and Maximus is willing to risk everything for him. And Richard Harris does, he has that, he nails it. And then obviously off the back of that, in the sort of latter stages of his career, just before he died, he's in the Harry Potter films. He's the first Professor Dumbledore before he passed away, and the role was filled by Michael Gambon. So it's just like you've got all the, you've almost got like two careers, I feel, with Richard Harris. You've got the younger one, the sort of the macho guy who's obviously a great actor, and then you've got the older man who sort of, you see that in his films, the gunslinger who's getting past his years, the emperor who's dying, the professor who's the elder statesman. And he's just great to watch, Richard Harris. He's fascinating. His off-screen persona and his life off-screen was fascinating as well. Big drinker, loved his rugby, big Irish personality. But yeah, he's just one of those actors. You can just watch him in anything. It don't matter what film he's in. And some of his films, sort of, especially in the 80s and that, were a bit of a mixed bag. But he's always good. He's always good value. And he's in a couple of my favourite films. So great chance to mention him and talk about him.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad Gladiator is up there. I've not read much about the making of it, but I mean that sounds hilarious. I mean, obviously,
I'll find it. If I find the article, I'll put it in the description. I'll find there's an article on it, mate. It's fucking madness, and it's what the best thing is, right? Russell Crowe wouldn't say that line. You know, that I am Maximus Decimus, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life and the next. He hated that line. He said it was corny, it was cheesy. No one would ever say that, and he refused to say it.
Just imagine an angry Russell Crowe now.
I'm not fucking saying this. It's stupid. He'd never say this. It's bollocks. Doesn't sound right. And Ridley Scott was like, "You are fucking saying it." And then he was like, you know, he didn't want to do it, and he was doing it half-hearted, whatever. But then he just fucking nailed it. And then it made me laugh because I saw a quote from Russell Crowe that said, "It's a stupid fucking line, but I'm such a good actor. I fucking nailed it."
Yeah. Mic drop.
Yeah. And he won an Oscar as well. He wins the Oscar, and the film's like, you know, an amazing success. So yeah, if you can, I'll try and find it to get out because it's just kind of like. But in the, you know, at the beginning of all this, you've got this performance by Richard Harris. It's
the catalyst. It's the catalyst that sort of
gets the film going.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's one of my favorite films. But I always think when you're playing historic characters, because he plays Marcus Aurelius, doesn't he? That's the character, but it's, you know, he was a real person. And I've read the philosophies of Marcus Aurelius, and he's a stoic and stuff. And to try and translate that into character as well, and sort of bring that all across. There's I love the bit where he's talking to his. Let's pretend that to his daughter, is it Lena? I think she might be called in the film. Let's pretend I'm a loving father and you are a doting daughter and stuff. And of course, I think one of my favorite quotes in cinema history is that there once was a dream that was Rome. That's just such a, you know, you could only whisper anything more and it would vanish. That's just such, and he lived, you know, I don't think there's been a better scene of a dying man on their bed, sort of, who's sort of trying to look back on their life. I mean, as a scene, it's been done lots of times, you know, where they're looking back on what they've done and they're saying they're, I don't know, they're looking for repentance for their lives from their loved ones and stuff. And it's just such a good scene. And when he tells Commodus that he's not going to be the, you know, that he's not going to follow in his footsteps and stuff, and then Commodus, is it Commodus?
Commodus, yeah.
Commodus.
Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah, and then, I mean, he's brilliant in that as a baddie. Then he gets the pillow out, and then what happens. But yeah, it's just it's a fantastic performance. I've never seen. Is it This Sporting Life? This Sporting Life?
Yeah, it's I watched it years ago. I need to see it.
A lot of people rave about that. Whenever you talk about sports films, that one always comes up.
He plays, is it Frank, a guy, and I think he's a minor, and he's a rugby. I think he's a former rugby player, and it's sort of like, you know, a bit of a gritty drama, but you know, he's in many ways he's quite dislikable, but because it's Richard Harris, you sort of end up almost rooting for him. It's that sort of thing, you know what I mean? With Richard Harris, there's always got that charm to him, even in a dislikable character that he plays. There's something there where you just, you know, you can sort of connect with him, and he's just he's a fascinating actor. And again, you know, one of those actors who doesn't matter who he's sharing a scene with, he's always worth watching. Do you know what I mean? Whether he's in with Russell Crowe or Joaquin Phoenix or with Clint, he doesn't share a scene with Clint Eastwood. Sorry, with Gene Hackman, he's always good value. And it's great that he had this career, and it's great that, you know, we like we say, we saw him in different roles as well. The sort of the proper, like, almost the story of his life, really.
Yeah.
Going from this boy, sort of drunken, you know, hellraiser to this elder statesman, and you see that in his films. It's like art imitating life, and you know, he's one of those actors who, he pops up, like, even in Patriot games, you know, with Harrison Ford, he pops up in that. He's not got a lot to do. He's like an IRA spokesman.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, he has, like, it's more, again, almost a glorified cameo, but yeah, again, it's just, you love watching him. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just, he captures you, and he finds something in every character he plays where you can connect with, and it's not easy to do that, especially when you've played certain, you know, some of the characters he has. It's just a great actor, and unlike the others where you lament the fact that we didn't have much time with him, with Richard Harris, I'm grateful for the fact that he did manage to get through his hellraiser days and get to this sort of golden era period in his career at the end, because it could have gone the other way. He could have done like Oliver Reed, who didn't really have much of a career towards the end of his life because he'd more or less drank himself silly. But with Richard Harris, he did, and you know, we're more the richer for it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to dig out some of that. I've still not seen Unforgiven. I think we mentioned that about free the podcast. Yes, I know you pulled that face before as well. I will definitely get to it. The next person I'm going to talk about, very similar to what you were talking about, Richard Harris, where he plays horrible characters, but you still sort of root for them or have an empathy. This actor, it's bizarre how he's one of my favorite actors. He's obviously passed away now, and I couldn't work out what it is that I actually love about him. But that's his talent. He always plays people you're not supposed to like. Like he specializes in playing like creeps and misfits. You're not supposed to like these characters, but to be able to have the talent and skill to make you root for that person, and not root for them in a bad way, like when you're rooting for the baddie way because they're one-dimensional sort of way. But it just it's so hard to sum up. So I stole a quote from Rolling Stone, and he said, "No modern actor was better at making you feel sympathy for fucking idiots, failures, degenerates, sad sacks, and hangdogs dealt a bum hand by life, even especially when he played them with all their worst qualities front and center." And I'm talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman. I just think he's brilliant. You shouldn't like the characters that he plays in his films. And the first one of my favorite all-time films is the Talented Mr. Ripley. I absolutely love that film, and it's the first film that I actually really took notice to his talent in it, because I've got a massive love of film shot in Italy, but I couldn't work out why I keep going back to this film. And it's his character, Freddie Mills. Now Freddie Mills is playing he plays Jude Law's character's best mate. And he's unsure of the Matt Damon character who's trying to take over the Jude. Matt Damon plays Mr. Ripley, and he's trying to take over the Jude Law character's life. And Freddie Mills is always dead suspect of him, but he plays a lot of, and he plays this aristocrat party boy, and you just would like a yuppie of the 1920s, I think, whatever era it is, and it's just the sort of. He sort of bullies him. He bullies the Matt Damon. He bullies his Mr. Ripley, and the looks on his face, and he's able. He's so good. He's so good. And you're like, go on, work it out. But you wouldn't like this person in any other walk, shame, or life. He's just a complete arsehole. You know, there's no way you'd like him. And you know, when I was going through his back catalogue, he's been in my favorite, The Big Lebowski. He was in that 25th Hour, which is my 25th Hour, which is one of my favorite Spike Lee films. In that he plays. Have you seen 25th Hour? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love that film.
He plays this sort of loser teacher in it against Edward Norton's cooler drug dealer character who's going to be going away, and it's the last day before he goes to prison. And all the way through it, he plays it so well. You're sort of rooting for him at the end that he ends up trying to get off with his teenage student, and you're like, you shouldn't be doing that. Do you know what I mean? But that's just sort of
great, that, because Barry Pepper's in it as well, isn't it? And Barry Pepper and Edward Norton are like on the same level of like quite cool guys who are mates, and who've, you know, and he's like the third one in the three mates who's like the geeky one, who doesn't get the girl, who doesn't have a, you know what I mean, like you say. And it's a great dynamic how they have that, and he's really good in it. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, and he won Best Actor for Capote. He was also have you seen A Most Wanted Man, which is an espionage film set in Berlin? Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, espionage films are one of my favorite genres, and he's brilliant in that. And I think that's one of the. It was towards the end of his career when he was getting more recognised for lead roles. I think after he won the Capote, because he play a lot of. He wouldn't get blockbuster roles unless he was playing sideman or supporting actor. I mean, he was in some huge films. He was in the Hunger Games. I think there's 3 of them. I think he was in all of them. But he was after Capote, because that was more of an art house independent film. But he absolutely nailed the role of Capote. And then he was getting more. He was getting offered more bigger roles. And I think it's Anton Corbijn who did A Most Wanted Man. I'll absolutely. Do you like Anton Corbijn films? Yeah, I was watching The American the other night with George Clooney, which is another brilliant.
Is he the guy in The Control?
Yeah, The Control as well. Yeah, So, and I think that it's a John Le Carre. It's based on a John Le Carre.
Is it to follow, mate? I always struggle with John Le Carre films.
It's easier than Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, mate.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and Little Drummer Girl was a series, and because they're so complex, these books, and it's easy when you read a book because you can read it and you get it in your mind. Sometimes I don't think they translate very well into film. I've ended up watching some of them films like twice and still not being able to fathom who the bloody hell is, what's going on. So no, I'll have to give that a go because I do like John Le Carre, but like I say, I've never quite found a film that I think does him justice.
Yeah, no, I really like them. Do you not like the Constant Gardener?
Sorry, Tell a Lie with Right Fines. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. But I used to, when I was at university, I could never sleep, and I think the film Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy came out at the same time. And every time I put it in, so I used to go home and just bang that on, and it'd be fucking gone because you just can't keep up with the plot in that. But I digress. But yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman, absolutely fantastic actor, and unfortunately died at the age of 46, I think, of a drug overdose. They're still unsure whether that was purposeful because I know whether it was suicide or just a mistake, because he did struggle with drink and drugs towards it later in his life when he was having marital problems. But yeah, I just love him, and it's just that. When you have the talent to sort of play these losers and what did the fucking idiots, as the Rolling Stones called them, and yet you still find you're still rooting for them. That's amazing to be able to do, because people can play them roles and just play them so one-dimensional, but you always sort of seem to be able to bring something different to the role.
Have you ever seen a film? You just reminded me of something called Happiness. By Todd Solondz film. It's probably one of the strangest films you'll ever seen. It's very, very dark. Like, it deals with real dark themes like paedophilia, stalking, murder. Just there's a lot going on in this film, but he's in it, and there's dark humor in it as well. And he plays a guy that rings up women, and basically masturbates while he just rings up strangers and masturbates.
See what I mean?
It's such a fucked up film, but it's really interesting. It's really sort of worth watching. Don't dismiss it because of the subject matter, because it's not like it's glorifying these things. It's just a sort of strange film, but it deals with these things, and he's in it, and he's just like, you talk about a loser. This guy's a fucking complete loser. But again, in the hands of an actor like Philip Seymour Hoffman, he just, he makes it almost funny. What's going on, because he's just sort of like, it's him in it, and he's the way he can do things. It's a mad film. It's a really good film, actually. And he's really good in it. And I watched the film the other day. Funnily enough, a film I've not seen of his. I might get this wrong, so forgive me. It's Synecdoche in New York.
It's a bit of an art house sort of. That's a complex film to watch.
Again, though, he's good in it.
Yeah,
it was as a film, I quite enjoyed it. It wasn't amazing, but he was great in it. Do you know what I mean? I felt sorry for him. Yeah, because his wife treats him like shit, or his partner, and he's a bit of despite being a playwright, whatever he's a bit of a loser in it, but he does it so well. Do you know what I mean? He really does. It's mad. It's like few actors can do that. A few actors will keep taking them roles when you don't have to.
He made a career of playing losers. Do you know what I mean? That's his whole back catalogue. I think he's probably, if you go through his IMDb, and the majority of it will be losers that is actually played. There was a quote about him that Philip Seymour Hoffman will never get. He'll never be like a George Clooney or anything like that, but he'll also never be out of work, because there's always a loser in a film, and he can always sort of bring something to it and stuff. So I really enjoy watching him.
Yeah, very prolific, wasn't he? Very prolific. Did a lot of films in his career. Like, did like often 2 or 3 films a year. Do you know what I mean? If you look at his body of work, there's so many films there. But when you do that many films, you expect a lot of them to be, average or not very good. But he did a lot of good films, a lot of really good films. And like you say, he won an Oscar for Capote. I always get Capote mixed up with the one with Toby Jones, because they both came out at the same time, didn't they? But no, he was the one that he won his Oscar for his portrayal of him. And it's not easy to do that, play someone like such a famous author, and he does it really well. So yeah, again, like the other ones we mentioned as well, some of the others we mentioned in John Cazale's style, an actor's actor. Actors loved him. They loved playing alongside him, loved sharing scenes with him. When he died, you saw a lot of him. Kate Blanchett, I think, when she got a BAFTA, just dedicated it to him.
Yeah. Sam Rockwell as well. I think when he won the Oscar for 3 Billboards Outside of. Did he win an Oscar for? And then he said, "This is for you. This is for my buddy Philip Seymour Hoffman." So yeah, again, like that. I think sometimes as audiences we can appreciate things from our perspective, but when you know a true actor, when other actors sort of when you're revered within your circle, do you know what I mean? It's a completely different perspective.
No, 100%, mate. Great actor, great big loss. But again, like the other ones, grateful that we've had so many good performances from such a legacy to leave behind, all those great films.
Yeah, only 46 years old as well, and like I said, he was banging for Magnolia as well. Is another good film.
Oh, he's in Boogie Nights as well, isn't he?
Yeah, Boogie Nights as well.
Paul Thomas Anderson again, another loser.
Yeah,
tries to Mark Wahlberg, completely gets it wrong, doesn't he? An utter loser, but a guy again you sort of feel sorry for. It's like, oh, really?
Honestly, if anyone's watching this, show me another career of any other actor that's played so many losers in there, right. except for Adam Sandler when he plays himself in every single film. But that's
it's mad when you started saying that. The first thing at the beginning was Adam Sandler. When you started saying he's made a career out of losers, the first thing I thought was Adam Sandler. It's bad that. We're not going to get him. We're not going to get him on as a guest, are we? No, that ship sailed after the first episode. Fucking hell. Mate, this is from one extreme to the other. This one, right? The reason I've chosen this actor is because he's more famous for being a musician. And you can, I quite liked him when I was a kid. I wasn't a massive fan. I quite liked him, but as an actor, I think he's a bit of a loss because I think he was just getting going as an actor, and I think he was showing what he was capable of and improving sort of film by film. And then his life was cut very short at a very young age, and we never really saw the best of him. And I think he would have been able to fill almost a certain gap. And it sounds mad this, but it's Tupac. And I'll explain what I'm on about because basically, people sort of argue sometimes any hip hop star can be an actor, but they're not always very successful. We've seen this a lot of them make the transition and been a bit of a mixed bag. But he was almost an actor and a performer at the same time. He made his first film around the time he was making his first albums, and we saw him progress through these films. And a lot of these films weren't that great, even being brutally honest. Films like they have good bits in them, but films like Above the Rim and Juice, they're all right. They're not sort of classics or anything. But he's quite good in him, and you can see him getting better and better. And then I think the 2 films that were sort of released around the time he died, I think it was Gridlocked and Gang Related. You can see he's getting sort of growing as an actor. And I always think that he died at how old was he when he died? Tupac. Let me check. Was it
26? I think he was 26.
I think you're right. Yeah, 25 actually. Yeah, just checking. Sorry. And I think he had a bit more to give, and I think it's a bit of a shame because he never had an amazing role. He had some good roles in some decent films, but I think he would have been an actor that could have maybe gone on to bigger and better things. And he had that sort of persona that fitted into certain films as well. Because you look at some of the gang films we're talking about. I mean, obviously, you've got the likes of Ice Cube's and he's the other famous hip hop star who became an actor. Ice-T, who did a lot of television. I love Ice-T for all the wrong reasons as an actor. I think he's genuinely one of the worst actors I've ever seen, but it's hilarious.
But does it so well?
Yeah, mate. It's like he's having a laugh. It's like if you ever watch, he's in CSI New York. It's comical. Yeah. It's mad. His performances in that. It's like he's taking the piss.
Have you seen him in Trespass?
Yeah,
he was a gangster. God, that's one of the worst fucking.
Oh, he's in. What's he in? He's in New Jack City, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's not as bad.
Everyone's in New Jack City.
Yeah, everyone's in fucking New Jack City. Yeah, fucking hell. But this is what I mean. You've got the likes of Ice-T, Ice Cube, Eminem's done films, obviously. You've got other sort of young black actors who've done gangster films, you know, like Cuba Gooding Jr., Wesley Snipes, those type of actors. But I think Tupac offered something different. He had a certain persona, he had a certain way about him. You know, he almost, there was very sort of thin lines between life and his art. He was, he wasn't really always from that lifestyle, but it became ingrained in it, didn't it? Because his mum and dad Black Panthers or something, and he was quite artistic as a child. Yet, you know, as he sort of got into his late teens, he got into whatever he got into, and then obviously it proved to be his downfall. But I just feel with Tupac that there was something there, and there's something that it's slightly missing almost from the film industry, and maybe he could have filled that void. I just think it's a shame we never got to see him in better roles and in more of them, because he made, I think, even though he died at the age of 25, I'm just going to go over it now.
Yeah, he didn't make. I think he made about 6 or 7 films, maybe.
Yeah, so like, yeah, he did, and some of those like posthumous releases. But yeah, he did, and you know, he's much more famous for being a rapper than he was an actor. But yeah, he was just one when I was thinking of it. I was thinking I would have liked to have seen him in more film, even just like another 5 or 6 years. I know you can't see him now, but it's a shame because I don't think anyone has quite filled that void. And yeah, just as an actor and performer, he was quite unique in that way, despite coming from what is a fairly saturated sort of pool, in the sense that you've got lots of hip hop artists that want to be actors and that try to have acting. You know, you've got all these sort of different films that come out featuring hip hop artists, but I just felt he was a cut above the rest, and you know, we'll never sort of get to see what he could have been.
Yeah, I mean, he went to acting school, didn't he? He went to acting school with Jada Pinkett, and I think he also starred in A Different World as well. He's in an episode of In a Different World. He played a character called Piccolo, which he was actually Jada Pinkett's boyfriend, who was a football. But I think when he first started acting, he was very much, and this was probably down to the rap industry and the opportunities that they were getting. He was quite typecast when he played Birdie in Above the Rim. Juice, I thought it was pretty good in Juice, which was his first sort of acting role. He played that with a bit of a, I don't know, it was quite sinister, and it was quite a dark role for him. But when you talk about the 2 films that were released just after he died, it did seem like he was sort of opening up, because if you look at who he's acting alongside in that, he had Tandy Newton and Tim Roth in Gridlocked, where he's playing a junkie, and I really enjoyed that film. And what else? And then he played alongside. Then it was not James Belushi. James Belushi, in Gang Related. And you just got to wonder where that could have led to, because he did have the background of acting. And then when people look at his lifestyle and stuff, the whole gangster stuff that happened towards the later of his music career, that was very much acting, because he like, you know what I mean? The Tupac before he went to prison was more sort of the militant. His album that came out was, I think, when he was in prison, but recorded before he went in, was Me Against the World. And that's more sort of like, or Tupacalypse Now as well. Before that,
was quite militant,
militant and more political. I think that was more the true person. But prison will fuck with you. And then he came out, and then he sort of got close to the devil. That was in Suge Knight, and then he very much got involved in the acting role. And it's not acting in a film sense that we're talking about today, but he was actually playing a part in many ways. You know what I mean? Like, for me, he was going alongside all these proper gangsters. And unfortunately, he played his role too well, and it led to his being shot in Las Vegas after the Mike Tyson fight. But yeah, you're right. It's good, great. When you told me you were going to put him in, I thought that's a fantastic shout, because it is the question. What could he have gone on to? I know most people are more inquisitive about his music career, but I think with the doors that were opening, another film that he was great in with when he was sort of playing against type was he was playing a postman in Poetic Justice alongside Janet Jackson. I think he's really good as well in that film. Great soundtrack in that film. But yeah, he's playing this sort of like postman where all the gang stuff's happening around him and stuff. But there's a story from that set where apparently he wanted to try and sleep with Janet Jackson. I'm not too sure how true this is, but the rumors were that Janet Jackson wanted him to take an AIDS test because she'd heard about what all these rappers are like, and he told her to fuck off.
So it's mad, because with Tupac, you know, there is the dark side to him as well. Obviously, he was a convicted sex offender. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know he claimed he didn't do it. There was an appeal pending after he got released from jail or whatever. But you have to say he got convicted for a reason. And you know, it's whether you can separate that from the artist or whatever. And I just think as an actor, you know, there was more to give there. And like, you know, like you said, the films he was in, there's something in those films where you think, you know what, there's an actor here, and you know, like you say, he wasn't just a singer or a rapper. Sorry, he'd been an actor first and almost trained as an actor, and you can see that, and you think, had his career gone on a little bit, there would have been some. I think I could just imagine there being some really interesting roles and some really interesting performances, and it's a shame we never really got to see that because it sort of ended before it really got going.
I agree. I'm glad you brought that. It's been a while since I talked about Tupac because when people were going East Coast or West Coast when we were growing up, I was always on Tupac's side. I seem to have gone over to Biggie in the later days, but I digress. Next one, I'm probably going for the biggest and greatest. Well, I meant when people are talking like top actors, not only dead actors. This man, many ways, people say he changed the face of acting when he came along. People say he's a method actor, or just the way he sort of immersed himself into the role of the character, it became sort of effortless. And when he delivered lines, of course, talk about Marlon Brando, it was like they weren't written. It was like the character they were being announced for the first time. He's just phenomenal across the board up until he had his towards the end of his career. But I mean, where do you start with Brando? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I acting before him, when you look at his peers and stuff, and there were many great actors, but you knew they were actors. Do you know what I mean? Marlon Brando, when you look at Marlon Brando alongside his peers during the day, it's just chalk and cheese in many ways, and he just changed the face of it. Films like On the Waterfront, when it's I could have been a contender. Fantastic monologue, a brilliant stage actor as well. I think Brando always tried to do something on stage once a year just to try and make sure he kept fresh. A film that he's brilliant in, but is such a hard watch, is Tango in Paris. Have you seen Tango in Paris?
Last Tango in Paris? No, I've not seen that. Funny enough,
there's a scene in that where the character Maria Schneider, I think she's called, and she gets raped badly with butter, and she knew nothing about that this scene was going to happen. She turned up on set and was told that this is going to happen, and I mean, to watch it is obviously it's not easy to watch, but the outpour of that sent her into mental health and drug abuse, and in many ways ruined her career. The story around Tango in Paris is just absolutely harrowing. I mean, it got banned in a lot of countries or states in America due to the explicit, almost pornographic content and stuff. But he's great in it. Do you know what I mean? When we're talking about actors immersing themselves into a role, to actually, I can't imagine if you'd being an actor and actually saying, "Can you act the part of a rapist?" Do you know what I mean? It just sounds like, how do you do that? But it's just so believable. And then you look again at Apocalypse Now, when he plays Captain Kurtz, alongside another great dead actor who's not made the list, but Dennis Hopper is brilliant as well in Apocalypse Now. He's the crazy fucking photographer. But Captain Kurtz as well, to the book that came from, A Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. It's a hard thing to do because Kurtz only comes out in the end of the film and at the end of the book, but you sense his presence all the way through it, and you can sort of do that with when it's Martin Sheen in it. Martin Sheen's the main character in Apocalypse Now. When he actually meets Kurtz, the weight that you've got, that sort of what he's being drawn to, is very much, it could have been let down, but when he actually meets how psychotic Marlon Brando's character is in Captain Kurtz is.
Colonel Kurtz, yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. That's because of Francis Ford Coppola, American writers. It's Captain Kurtz in the book, by Joseph Conrad. Nice. Correcting me, you bastard. English degree. No. Right, whatever. In the book, it's Captain Kurtz.
You've actually read the book. I haven't. I've just seen the fucking film. But do you know who else hasn't read the book? Who did read the book?
Marlon Brando.
Yeah. We were talking about chaotic sets. And I take it you've heard about the story about Apocalypse.
Yeah, but the thing is that there's the rumors whether what was true and what wasn't, because Marlon Brando supposedly turned up and they didn't have any scripts and stuff like that, and he had to sit in a bus with Francis Ford Coppola, and they were trying to write scripts, or he turned up and sets weren't ready and stuff. But I was listening to a podcast the other week on the making of the film, and Brando clashed with what the reports were about what actually happened on set there as well. So it's quite interesting whose story you believe. Go on, give us an anecdote from Apocalypse Now.
Well, I just heard that he turned up 4 stone overweight, and that's why all his scenes are shot with him in the darkness, because he was meant to be this colonel who's obviously quite fit and all right, he's older, but he's still, and he was obese basically, and hadn't read the book, and was like, wouldn't work with Dennis Hopper because Dennis Hopper stunk because he was on drugs. So Dennis Hopper's scenes with Brando had to be shot separately and like edited together, and it was just a fucking. And then obviously you've got Martin Sheen having his heart attack halfway through the making of it as well. Just to add a bit. Harvey Keitel was actually casting the Martin Sheen role, and then Coppola realizes he's miscast him, so sacks him and gets Sheen in. He does have a fucking heart attack. So you got, and then Marlon Brando turns up fucking 4 stone overweight.
Brilliant.
And this was after they had a monsoon as well that rained over all the set and everything. Because it took like 3 years to make that film, didn't it?
Yeah, it's a long time to make that film. But I mean, it's an amazing film, and obviously the soundtrack on that is brilliant. I never knew that they didn't do the scenes with Dennis Hopper because he's stunk. I love stuff like that. I mean, not in this case, but sometimes the story of making of are sometimes better than the actual films, and it'd be hard to sort of compare the two with Apocalypse Now because it's such a fantastic film.
There's a film called Hearts of Darkness by Coppola's wife. I forget her name. I want to say Eleanor. I might be wrong. About the making of it. It's literally just about the making of the film, and it is fucking just. It's like they're in Nam.
Yeah.
They're like what is going on. It is just fucking absolute chaos. Like so much shit was going on there. The crew, the set, and everything. And Coppola's in the middle of all this madness. And Brando turns up. And yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but yeah, if you get a chance to watch it, mate. It's fantastic.
Hearts of Darkness, based on the book that was called The Hard Darkness. But obviously, we can't talk about Brando without. I mean, and that was the character. That was him in many ways. He was larger than his career, and I think people sometimes forget about what a great actor he was because of the stuff that was going off scene and the stories about how he would turn up on set. But when he plays Don Vito, I mean, that when you're talking about Richard Harris and reinvigorating careers and stuff, nobody wanted him, did they? Like when Coppola was shooting The Godfather, there was like, well, Coppola was very firm that he only wanted Marlon Brando to play Don Vito, and he had to fight tooth and nail, like he did for most of the film. And then he comes in and then wants to put cotton balls in his mouth. So that was his idea to do all that, and then talking this drawl. Pidgin Italian accent in many ways, but did you actually know that Brando is a qualified makeup artist, and a lot of films he actually did his own makeup, and that's so when he's been trusted to do that by Coppola will have been aware that Marlon Brando's got these skills in his locker. But the character of Don Vito and how he plays it, and we're talking about how Tony Soprano played so many different emotions James Gandolfini played Tony Soprano with so many emotions and stuff like that. He's like, for me, Don Vito is like an iceberg in the way he sort of moves through The Godfather. You just know that there's so much story going on underneath it, but he doesn't let anything out, and which is part of what he actually says in it to Sonny when Sonny talks out loud when Salazzo's talking about them offering the drug money, and but he explodes. I think Pacino can overdo it sometimes, like especially in the 90s. When he went all shouty and stuff like that. But he like the Don only moved when he wanted to move, when he was really upset and angry. One of my favorite scenes in the Godfather is when he's the old man and he's chasing the kid around the garden. Is but the orange and the fruit, because that was just. It's just a beautiful moment. I've seen my granddad run around, with my parents and with my kids and stuff like that. But he just seemed to. That's what I always think. There's a great Ernest Hemingway used to say that people overwrite books, and he came up with the theory called an iceberg. And what that is that you have to get across with your words. You can tell the story, but you have to allude to something going underneath. So you don't tell them what's going on, but you make certain references to it, and that's why I always say that Marlon Brando as Don Vito is very much like an iceberg moving through the film, because he's carrying everything and this history that's only unveiled in Godfather 2 when you hear De Niro, when De Niro plays it, but he brings all that sort of weight with him when he's moving through the Godfather, and it's just an amazing, the best film of all time, and I will not be questioned on that, but. And we're talking about Marlon Brando's off-screen behaviour. He hated acting. He said it's a farce. He said it's such a big con. He goes, I should have been going for the finished school. I'd probably been a scientist or a con man. He hated acting. He goes, it's just pathetic. He was more interested in doing his he was very much into. We spoke about social injustices and fighting for causes on our podcast, and he was very much like that. I suppose epitomised with the sending the. Let me get a name right. Sacheen Littlefeather up to collect his Oscar because he was fed up with how Native Americans were represented on screen by TV by film studios. And if any actors are watching now, take note when the Oscars come around. After what we spoke about previously, he also marched alongside Martin Luther King. And then he was very much for standing up for people who were being wrongly discriminated. During what was probably America's most politically charged time up until the 2020 arrived. And then you look at the other side of him when he had 16 kids, Marlon Brando, and he lost he lost one to drug abuse, and I think she committed suicide because she became. You're talking about Marlon Brando gaining weight in Apocalypse Now. His daughter gained that much weight and then got so fed up with it, she ended up taking her own life. His son was charged with manslaughter, and then this was when Marlon Brando's career seemed to spiral massively out of control. Was when his son was charged with manslaughter, and Brando took the stand at his trial and pleaded. If you want to read these articles on that. Pleaded with the judge to let him take his place and said, I'm sorry. I said, this is all my fault. I've been such a horrendous father. Please don't send my son to jail. I'll do anything. I'll quite gladly take his place now. And then after that, that was sort of when, someone who doesn't like acting or anything like that, and what his sort of mindset was. But what a fascinating character, amazing actor, life story. And he died in 2005, which isn't that long ago, really. The back end of his career, his roles weren't great. I think he played he played in a Matthew Broderick film, if I remember correctly, where he played the freshman, and that was just sort of, I don't know. It's hard to watch actors that have been so great and then sort of fall into stuff like that, and they're just doing it to try and take the dollar. And that was pretty much what it was. But I just think Don Vito's, we talked about Fredo earlier on. That film is just fucking amazing, and as is Marlon Brando in pretty much everything he did up until he lost the plot.
No, I agree, mate. And I bought your copy of The Godfather that I read, actually. It was fascinating to read that and the backstory as well. I know you get some of it with The Godfather too. But yeah, he captured all that. It's weird with Brando, isn't it? Because I don't know if you've seen the famous pictures of, even on The Godfather with Robert Duvall wearing the billboard with Brando's lines on it. He'd literally have cue cards and stuff like that, which is unheard of. But he said he preferred it because it was more spontaneous and stuff like that. A lot of bollocks. He just couldn't bother reading the scripts. I always think of Brando as almost like Socrates, a Brazilian footballer, or someone like that. Just immensely talented and just almost can't be asked. Do you know what I mean? But still, even though he's faxing in his performances, he's still winning Oscars and just being amazing and being better than anyone else. And you look at that career, you look at from his early stuff like Streetcar Named Desire. Obviously, he played him on Broadway. Stanley Kozlowski took it to into the film with Elia Kazan. You mentioned it on the waterfront, and then after sort of 10 years of ropey films, should we say, coming back with The Godfather and still being in, still later on in his career, Apocalypse Now, Superman. I thought he was quite good in that. I thought he was towards the end. Yeah, he was faxing in his performances a lot of the time. He was, some of his film roles. I saw him in The Island of Dr. Moreau. I think he was all right in that, but again, it was like it's almost a little bit sad to see because he's not a well man. In some of
Yeah,
he's piled on the weight. He's almost can't be asked, but he's iconic in Brando. He almost redefined acting. You mentioned there the method and stuff like that, and immersing himself in a role and just doing it his way. And there's never been anyone like him. And some of the roles he took as well were so varied. Some of them are questionable now. I think he didn't play a Chinese guy in one of them. It's like, he's such a range of different roles, but a sort of a real force of nature. I think Brando. He is. He's not like an actor. He's almost transcended acting. He's like something else. Do you know what I mean? That seems to usher in this wave of these crazy method guys and what have you. And I think without Brando, you wouldn't have had the likes of De Niro and Pacino and that Hoffman as well. I think he was such a massive influence for those actors.
Yeah,
his presence is still an influence is still felt today. Yeah, and I agree with you, mate. I think Vito Corleone and Brando as him is arguably one of the greatest characters and performances of all time. It's amazing. So no, I'm glad you picked him, mate. Good shout.
Crack on, mate.
One extreme to the other here now. This actress is someone who, again, was taken far too early from us, and is in some really interesting films, and has such a wide range of performances as well, from like fluffy teenage pop shite, for want of a better word, to sort of gritty dramas, and is just a fascinating actress, and it's Brittany Murphy. She is one of those actresses who she always brings something different to a role, and something about her. She was obviously, beautiful girl, beautiful woman, but not in the sort of classical Hollywood sense, if that makes sense. She could be quite, there's a sort of realism there. Do you know what I mean? Like if you see her in films like 8 Mile, for example, she has that bit where she's like, she's gorgeous, but there's a realism and a grittiness there. And I just love the persona in the films and the way she carried herself. It was obviously a tragedy when she passed away, but if you look at her career, the way it was going, again, someone who, it would have been really fascinating to see the role she'd have taken when she got into her mid-30s. I think she was 32, I think, when she died. Her mid-30s and a middle-age and as an elder actress. But Brittany Murphy pops up in a few films that throughout her career where she offers something different, and the films are sort of all the better for having her in them. Do you know what I mean? Like, like obviously she sort of made a name on Clueless, which as a sort of daft teenage film, it's actually not that bad. If you're like, it's not. I mean, no one's going to sit here and fucking say Clueless is the greatest film ever, but as a sort of teenage comedy, Clueless is quite a good one. Do you know what I mean? It's one of the better ones.
Yeah.
It's sort of well revered as the the perfect example of that, to do a teenage high school comedy is Clueless. And she's obviously very good in that. And then you see her in different films as she got older. Girl Interrupted. She's good in Sidewalks of New York, an Ed Burns film, where it's like a bit of an ensemble piece. It's like a Ed Burns film in the sense it's very much like a Woody Allen film. Loads of different storylines that intertwine, and it's set in New York, obviously. And she's really good in that. Loved her in 8 Mile. Loved her in Sin City. But there's one film that if there's one film you need to see her in, or need to see anyway, it's a film called Phoenix, which is one of my favorite films, and it's a film that anyone's seen. It's Ray Liotta's in it. It's set in Phoenix, Arizona. It's all these. Ray Liotta's a gambling addict who he's a copper as well, and he's going through all sorts of drama. It's a sort of real sort of neo noir, with the anti-hero and the femme fatale and all that sort of stuff. And all the characters are flawed and everyone's up to no good and all that sort of stuff. She's in it. She's not in a lot, but when she's in it, she's really good. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
And like we said with everyone we mentioned, doesn't matter who she's with, who she started alongside. She's been in films, with the likes of Michael Douglas, with in Sin City. It's like another ensemble piece. I think she's with like Clive Owen and Mickey Rourke and actors like that. And yet she's always, really watchable and holds her own. And again, it's just a shame that we never get to see more of her, because I always felt with Brittany Murphy, she wasn't just the sort of
pin-up sort
of actress who can only play the one type of role. She had a wide range, and I think we would have seen a lot more of that as she got older. And obviously, you don't get those young girl roles and those types of roles, and she was already moving towards that. And it's a shame, because we know, despite the fact she made a lot of films during her career, for someone who's quite young, we never got to see the next stage in her career. And I think it would have been fascinating, because she's always someone who's worth watching, and she has that sort of cheeky sense of humor that's always there as well, that you can sort of see in a lot of her performances. And like I said to you, whether she's alongside the likes of Ray Liotta or Michael Douglas or Angelica Houston, she always holds her own. She's always able to bring something different to her, not just the role, but to the film as well. And it's a big loss. It was a tragedy. Obviously, it was a tragedy because it was so unexpected when she passed away. And I think we would have seen a lot from her, because she'd had such a good career that you could only have seen it carried on growing. You don't expect someone with her talents as well would have struggled for those roles when she got into her mid and late 30s. I expected her career to have just carried on and her to become, a sort of a Academy Award winning actress. And it's a shame we never got to see that, because her career was just getting into that next stage when, unfortunately, like I say, she passed away. And it's sad that she did, because she was such a, obviously it's sad the fact that a young woman passed away, but from a film point of view, it's sad that we lost a great actress.
I really enjoy watching Brittany Murphy on screen. She always plays damaged very well. Do you know what I mean? She always plays the roles of people who've sort of got baggage. We talk about 8 Mile and stuff like, where she's like trailer trash sort of thing, and she's trying to, go one up. She's trying to get, and she had that twinkle in her eye. Do you know? She always had like that mischievous look. I think in some ways she reminds me of a young Jack Nicholson. Do you know, about a female version of Jack Nicholson? Do you know what I mean? When she's got that sort of that glint when she's up to no. I think she's great in a Girl Interrupted.
Girl Interrupted,
Angelina Jolie. That was she?
Yeah, Angelina Jolie won an Oscar for it, and Winona Ryder's in it as well. But Brittany Murphy, she got a lot of plaudits for that role. I think she was nominated for a few awards for it. She's very good in it, very good indeed. And again, it's with actresses that are at the top of their game, and she's more than holds her own. She's arguably one of the most watchable parts of that film.
Age 32 as well, man. That's no age at all, is it? Really?
It's sad. I mean, obviously it's sad because she's a young woman, but like I said earlier, as an actress, you can only imagine what the next sort of 10, 20 years would have offered. Someone that talented with that distinctive look and her ability and her experience as well, she would have just gone on to much, bigger and better things. And no doubt they did.
Yeah, because I mean, when you talk about the archetypal poster girl or pin-up girl from that area, her peers is probably like the likes of Alicia Silverstone and what was the other girl called with green eyes in Clueless? And they got to a certain age, and as horrible as Hollywood can be, there's only so far looks will get you. And I think that Brittany Murphy had more talent to act, then that's why she would probably progress further. I can't remember what that other girl's called. It's going to do my absolute head in.
The one I'm trying to think, the with green eyes.
Yeah, she's a black girl with green eyes.
Oh, Stacey Dash.
Stacey Dash is in it as well, isn't she? But you know what I mean? That their careers were sort of limited in terms of on talent, but I think she would have gone on to do bigger and better things. I'm going to bring it a lot closer to home now. Dare I say the greatest actor to come from Greater Manchester? I'll not say Manchester because he was born in Salford in 1936. Manchester United fan. Denounced having a knighthood because he's not really into that, to quote, not into that surfing. So he said he didn't want a knighthood. But Albert Finney, man, is absolutely phenomenal actor. And you're talking about like Elder Statesman and in Richard Harris, and Albert Finney very much sort of embodies that in terms of his career. One of my, I really love kitchen sink dramas, and Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, what he's in is the best film of that era. And he was actually, I think he was auditioned for the role of Richard Harris's in a Sporting Life. I think Albert Finney was also up for the same role, because there's a lot of actors that came out of that era, and out of that movement. But he's absolutely brilliant in that. He's also in Miller's Crossing, the Bourne films. I'm a huge. And James Bond as well. He makes an appearance in the end. Skyfall. Am I right in saying he's James? Is he James Bond dad, or is he's a relative of James Bond when he goes up to
the groundskeeper?
The groundsman. The Skyfall.
Country House, whatever it is.
Aaron Brockovich, I thought he was absolutely brilliant in. He played Murder on the Orient Expressway. He played Poirot. He's just. He just across the board is absolutely fantastic actor. Albert Finney. I can watch him in almost anything that he's been in. I also think it's interesting when you see the roles that he could have been. Another. Am I right in saying Ben Kingsley was from Salford as well? Was he born in Salford?
Oh, Ben Kingsley, I think, was originally from Yorkshire, but studied in Salford.
Studied in Salford. Well, Albert Finney was so close to playing Gander. Can you imagine? I mean, as talented, and I know he went to like drama school, but I just can't imagine Albert Finney as Gandhi. That I'd like to see that in a sort of parallel universe. But,
I always thought Albert Finney as Poirot was strange enough, but Albert Finney he made it work. But Albert Finney as Poirot, Gandhi, I think, because Ben Kingsley, you're right, he's from but he's also, I think Ben Kingsley's dad or his mum are from the same region of India as Gandhi. Or the same area, like he's got. That wasn't what got him the role. I think he got the role anyway, and it was a coincidence almost. But that would have been a mad one to see that. But I think it worked out well for them both in the end. That didn't
happen. Traffic as well. Another brilliant film. I really enjoyed him in Big Fish, which is a little known. I forgot the name of the director.
It's Tim Burton.
Tim Burton it's a little note. It's not one of his better well-known Tim Burton films, and I think he plays alongside Ewan McGregor. He plays Ewan McGregor's father in that. He's really good in that. Aaron Brockovich, but he got awards for days. Absolutely brilliant actor. And I watched him with my kids the other day in Aherne. I thought it was absolutely brilliant in Aherne. When he
got a bald head in that.
He's got a bald head. He's got a bald head. And he's just the turn on a sixpence when he goes from being an Alan Sugar type person to actually doting on this young girl and stuff. And I know Annie's seen as a kids' film, but it's just, it's a fantastic performance. But Albert Finney, Salford legend, Northerner, Manchester United fan.
Mate, I think Fergie was mates with him as well, wasn't he? I think he met him a few times, was a big fan. No, I'm with you. I mean, I did it the wrong way around almost. I got into Albert Finney for his later career. Miller's Crossing is one of my favourite films. Love that Coen Brothers film. He's great in that as Leo, the sort of gangland boss who's struggling to keep control of everything. And then this is Soderbergh films, Traffic, and Aaron Brockovich. I love him in Aaron Brockovich. Him and Julia Roberts and Aaron Brockovich. He's just fucking absolute active masterclass. They're both brilliant in it. The way they play off each other, and he's great because Julia Roberts has got the sort of the really likable role, and she's reveling in it. And it's she does really well. She won an Oscar for it, and you see him sort of grappling with this woman and trying to do the right thing and struggling to keep everything. And he's just great in it. He does it so well. And obviously the Bond films. And then I sort of went back to his earlier career, as you mentioned, Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, and he's just. There's just that sort of charm into him. He's, he's like Richard Harris in that sense. In the hands of someone else, he could have just been really dislikable, or just a bit of an oaf. But he's got that charm and that cheekiness. And
it's like the anti-hero, I think, is the way to describe them sort of characters. But I absolutely loved him in that. And when he's having it away with his his fellow employees, misses and stuff, and he's a right rum bastard. And there's just quotes in that, like where the one that was ripped off by the Arctic Monkeys, whatever people say I am, I ain't. And he's just, he's absolutely phenomenal actor.
He is great timing, great comic timing as well. He's very good he could make a serious role quite comedic in the way he delivered certain lines. So again, it's sad, but again, a great career.
Definitely.
You go back to one extreme to the kitchen sink, black and white dramas set in wherever it was, the North in the early 60s, whatever, to starring in Hollywood blockbusters galore towards the end of his career. It's like blockbuster after blockbuster after blockbuster. Oh yeah, the biggest Bond film ever. Yeah, well, throw Albert Finney in. Do you know what I mean? Like, hang on a minute. What's this happening? Guy from Salford's just absolutely smashing it out of the park. Really, again, someone you can, a generous actor as well. Never, in a lot of his films towards the end of his career, he's with the younger actors, but they're not novices. The likes of Julia Roberts, Daniel Craig, Matt Damon. But the scenes in them are great because he's not overdoing it. He's not trying to scene steal, and they play well together. He's always good box office with good value for those types of roles because he does it so well. As someone who lives in Salford, I'm proud that we've got a Salfordian who's absolutely, hit the top of the game on many ways. Glad you chose him, mate. He is another one who, you gave me Gandolfini, so I couldn't ask you to give me another one because I would have picked Albert Finney for many reasons. My last one, we've mentioned him before. We mentioned him, I think, when we did our top 5 80s films. I picked Die Hard because of him. And I love him. He's one of my favourite actors ever, and it's Mr. Alan Rickman. I had to pick him because, Die Hard as Hans Gruber is the film that made him, and probably his most famous role. Well, actually, probably not following the Harry Potter films, but before the Harry Potter films, it was. He's defined every baddie in almost every blockbuster since then. He's defined by how he, compares to Hans Gruber and Alan Rickman's. Hans Gruber, he just sort of set the benchmark, wonderful. But with Alan Rickman, there's so many different roles and so many different performances, whether it's the sort of the ghost character in Truly Madly Deeply, to my favorite Alan Rickman performance probably is in Dogma, following.
Oh, I'm going to say the same thing. Yeah, love it.
That's the scene where he's with Linda Fiorentino, and he's playing like an angel, and he's explaining how he had to tell Jesus that Jesus was Jesus, the Son of God. And it's the way he captures that emotion, and he's like, he's explaining it's not fair that I had to tell this young lad that he was the Son of God and all this was going to happen to him. It's just amazing. It's just an acting masterclass.
Yeah,
it really is. And I remember watching that thinking, how the fuck is this film by Kevin Smith, who's known from Clerks, who's known for fucking fart and pussy jokes, making a film that's so multi-layered and almost existential in the way it looks at religion and stuff, with this performance and the script in it as well. It's just unreal. And he's great. I know a lot of people, the religious right, sort of picketed against it because he said it was bashing Catholicism. I don't think it was personally, but he was amazing in that. And then he's great. Even Love Actually, which is a flawed film, but it's quite a Christmas film. But him in it, he's the one that gets the housewives throwing things at the telly when he's on, because he does the dirty on Emma Thompson. But again, even though he's doing it, but it's Alan Rickman, and he's got that. It's just that sort of charisma there, isn't there? There's sort of Alan Rickman. He's just got a way about him, and it's almost like the whole world's wrong and he's right. There's just something going on there. Do you know what I mean? And it's like
very well put. Yeah.
Yeah. The way he does the way he acts in it, it's like, in Robin Hood, whether it's in Robin Hood, where it's like, oh, what he's up against Robin Hood and everything's going wrong. And it's like, what is going on? And you end up rooting for him.
Yeah.
And then like in Harry Potter, he's got the one role that's probably the most, I wouldn't say the most important, but certainly one of the most sort of difficult, because he's got to lead the audience into thinking he's one way and then divert the other. And even he dn't know this, apparently J.K. Rowling hadn't, you know, he sort of found out that the character arc of Professor Snape halfway through in playing him in the first few films, and he does it brilliantly. And you can't imagine anyone doing that the way that he does. I mean, I'm no Harry Potter fan. I know I'm going to get pelters for this. My missus loves Harry Potter, but I'm a 40-year-old man, so I don't. But I love Alan Rickman in those films. I do, and I love Alan Rickman.
Steals them films.
I love him in everything he's in, and you know, he's done some films that are sort of whatever, but he's always outstanding in them. You know, whether it's someone like Bob Roberts, I think, or whether it is, well, I think his last film I watched not long ago, I think it's The Eye in the Sky, and again, you know, it's him and Helen Mirren. You can't go wrong. You can't.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful actor. Went about acting in a sort of funny way. I think he was trained as a graphic designer, started a graphic design company, and then went into acting. But, you know, didn't do the sort of I wanted to be an actor all my life thing. Was a designer at first, and then switched at a fairly young age. Did, I think, RADA, and then sort of hit the big time with Die Hard, and made the most of that and never looked back. And you know, whether it's in sort of Sense and Sensibility, or it's in you know, Dogma or whatever, it doesn't matter. He's always fantastic. And for me, he's usually the best thing in a film. No matter what film he's in, he just is.
Yeah.
You know, you go through his body of work and you pick a film that he's in and tell me what the best thing in that film is, and I guarantee it'll be him.
And it could be a shit film, but it's worth watching for Alan Rickman, in it. Everything. I like you said, I mean, Love Actually is a throwaway Christmas film, but you do, and God Almighty, every time you watch that with your missus, you don't half get the dirties.
Yeah,
every single.
Especially if you're like, but it's Alan Rickman. You got to like, you got to love Alan Rickman. You're like, no, he's a dog. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Don't you be getting any ideas?
Yeah, that girl that flirts with him and tries it on me, she's got to be one of the most hated women in film. Everyone's like, oh. Yeah. But again, you know, he's great in it, and he's, you know, he's. I mean, to be fair, a lot of his films are very good, but even the ones you say that aren't great, he's still amazing in it. And I know he wasn't young. He was, I think, he was in his 60s when he passed away. But it was sad, and it's mad because, you know, when I heard Alan Rickman has passed away, I was working in a newsroom, and it was like, it dropped in the news. Alan Rickman's just died, and you know, I automatically was gutted because I loved him, and I thought, oh, you know, Hans Gruber and that type of thing, and then half the office was just Professor Snape. That was, you know, for that generation, that's the role that defined him. But just a wonderful actor, and again, that sort of dark humor bubbling beneath the surface, that sort of just almost like you always get the feeling that he's just sort of exhausted at the world at times. It's like, you know, I'm having to deal with these people. They don't get what I'm trying. You know what I mean? Like, you always get that with Hans Gruber. He's like frustrated at what's going on. You get that when he's playing the role of the sheriff of Nottingham. You always have that sense of like, almost like, you know, who are these people, and why aren't they getting it? But he does it so well, and he's just he's a great actor, one of the best this country's ever produced. Definitely.
Completely agree with you. I'm going to throw a curveball in at the last minute, as usual. I was going to go for Natalie Wood, who I absolutely love. She was a brilliant Rebel Without a Cause teen. She was a child sensation of an actress, and then went on to do great things until her early death. But she's not going to make my final five, because after Albert Finney, I was wondering if you're going to allow me to put in another actress, writer from Greater Manchester, who, for me, I was on the podcast with Clint Boone the other week, and he was asking me who was my favourite Mancunian, and I think she's a cracking actress and cracking writer. I would say Caroline Aherne, because I think it would have been amazing to see what she would have gone on to do, you know, had she not passed away at an early age. Because whilst the Royle family is very comedic, she is brilliant. She does play the character of Denise really well. You know what I mean? The sort of the way I mean, I could talk about the Royle family all day, but she plays Denise fantastic. And then if you look at her character acting when she was playing Mrs. Merton, do you know what I mean? When we're talking about people like I don't know, we've mentioned the likes of Eddie Murphy before, who went on to do comedy. If you're looking at Tupac, that went on to Eddie Murphy that went on to do films, Tupac the musician who went on to do films. And then also, like, if you see how Steve Coogan from the same school of comedy that Caroline Aherne did, and he's done a lot of fantastic roles. You know, he's broke out from here to Hollywood. I never really look back in terms of who he acts alongside nowadays. So it'd been great to see where Caroline Aherne could have pushed forward with her role had she not passed away at an early age. But yeah, I mean, as Denise Royle, the smoking 80 a day with her mum and stuff like that, was just reflecting my life on screen, and forever thankful for that. And I think it's come up to the anniversary of her death next week, actually. Funnily enough, July the 4th, July the 5th. Anyway, yeah. But Caroline Aherne, I just think she was a tragic loss. Great on screen, great writer, great characters whenever she was doing a comedy. You know, Scorchio. You know, you just don't know what could have been in front of her. She had a demons as well, as has been well documented. But I just love that woman to bits. She's absolutely amazing.
No, couldn't agree more. Glad you've. I mean, Natalie Wood, yeah, fully respect, but Caroline Aherne, you know, she's made my life a lot better. Put it that way, because the Royal Family was just one of my favourite shows. The writing in that, you know, putting aside the acting as well, which she was fantastic as Denise Royle, but the writing in that is just absolutely unbelievable. And you know, you're going from a sitcom. They were talking about funnily enough, I mentioned Michael Imperioli and Robert Shapiro before on Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
and they were talking about the Royal Family because Michael Imperioli found it. He sort of discovered this, and he said, it makes Seinfeld look plot driven because it's just literally about nothing, just sat in a room, but it's amazing. And some of the writing in that, and you know, my favorite line from the Royal Family is when Grandma Nana says to Sue Johnson, she says about her best mate Betty. She said, "Oh, you know, I never liked her when we were friends. She moved she moved to Leeds in the end, married a joiner. He knocked her about a bit, but they had a lovely home." And it's just like it's so good. It's so good, and it's mold breaking because you know people didn't make comedy. They don't know. It's not in fact no one's made one since. Set in a front room in Manchester or you know in wherever. And it's just people watching the telly and chatting. You know, imagine pitching that to a studio. I've got an idea.
I was saying this the other day. Is like that to write it is genius. To come up with the concept of doing it is genius. To get it made by the BBC is genius. And then if you look at the knock-on effect, The Office doesn't get made if the Royal Family doesn't get made. I don't think we wouldn't have Gogglebox for better or for worse now on Channel 4 if that wasn't made. But the writing is just absolutely phenomenal. I don't think I think it gets lost sometimes because everyone sort of raves about Alan Partridge and stuff. But for me, Royal Family, just because it's a lot closer to home and stuff, it was just mine, it was yours, my mates' front rooms on TV every week, and there's very little there's very little happening, but that it was all happening. Do you know what I mean? That sometimes they're the best days of your life. Just sat there doing fuck all on the couch talking to your mates. The best bit with me when he's got shit in his shoe and she's putting the knife to get out of the grips of his shoe. I thought, Jesus fucking.
It's so great.
Next to the clean plates.
It's so mean sometimes, aren't they? Honestly, do you know what I mean? Like, but you know, it is
kitchen
so
sink.
weird.
That was kitchen sink drama for the millennium.
I had a mate, Adam Woods, who I went to school with, and I think he lived in Salford, and his family was just like the Royal Family. His dad was just like Jim Royle. Just sit on his couch, on his chair, and you know, make these jokes. And like, I just remember like whenever Julio Iglesias was on the telly, go Julio double glazy ass and just shit like that. You know what I mean? Like Olivia Newton-John was Olivia Neutron Bomb and just daft shit. But when I was a kid, I used to think his dad was hilarious. And like, I remember when that came out, it just reminded me of it. And it's just one thing I read in Ricky Tomlinson's book, and he said that the first scene they shot, the first episode they shot, halfway through shooting, she ripped up the script. She said it wasn't working.
Really?
Yeah. He said, like, I'm not getting the work, what I want to do here. and she just scrapped the script for that one, and redid it, which is a massive risk. Again, you're trying to do this, which probably everyone's saying is mad anyway, and then halfway through you're going, actually, this script's crap. I want to redo it. I'm not. It's been a bit too obviously jokey, and I don't want that. I want it to be more nuanced and realistic, and you know what I mean. And she did that, and then she was happy with it. And obviously, a lot of people don't forget when the Royal Family came out, thought this is going to be viewed by one man and his dog and fucking disappear.
Yeah,
and it became this absolute juggernaut that really fine television that everyone raved about. And it's a shame because you're right, Caroline Aherne did have her demons. She did, was taken from us too soon. And in many ways, there was all that sort of. It's mad because in 2000 and I forget the year, was it 2016, 17 when everyone passed away almost at once, like Victoria Wood, Prince, Caroline Aherne. It almost got lost a little bit in that we'd lost this absolute comedy genius. And I always felt sorry for Caroline Aherne because the tabloid stories and stuff, she had the problems with drinking and stuff that we can all relate to. But ultimately, despite all that, she just managed to produce one of the greatest television shows of all time that absolutely redefined the genre. And you can say that. I mean, sorry, you could try saying that about any program, but it won't be true. This is true. Like you said, The Office and other sort of. I know they're more mockumentary style, but it follows on from that. They're not plot driven as such. It's just character driven. And in the middle of all this as well is her performance as Denise Royle, who goes from a sort of almost kid to a mother of, was it 2 or 3 in the end? I forget. But just an amazing writer, an amazing actress. You absolutely nailed it. Whether it's Mrs. Merton or some of the work on the Fast Show and stuff like that. It just makes me proud that we've got people like that from Manchester. I know it sounds daft, but it just does.
No, I completely agree with you, mate.
This is sort of the talent we've got that's come from this city, and it should be so missed. But like we've said with all of them, that body of work goes on forever. And if you've not seen the Royal Family, you need to sort your head out and fucking watch it because it's just amazing. It's just hilarious. I
completely agree. And on that note, we will say rest in peace to Caroline Aherne. It's actually the 2nd of July, so this goes out tomorrow. Be Friday, is it? When Thursday? It'll be anniversary of her death. But we've been Scotty and Motty. Please subscribe, share, comment. We have been buzzing off your response. We passed over 600 subscribers today. Tell your mates. Let us know who your favourite dead actors are or favourite films. If you agree with me or Jay, and if you don't, even better, let us know what you don't agree with. We shall see you very, very soon. Nice one.